mindful eating is the practice of being intentional, or you can even say conscious, with your eating habits. And it's also a combination of practicing nutrition fundamentals while incorporating parts of intuitive eating. Now, what I have found is a lot of people are, let's say, mindless or unconscious with their eating habits. They are very rarely intentional with what they're eating, even when they're eating, how they're eating, or even possibly why they're eating. And so something we can do is adopt this mentality of practicing mindful eating and learning and practicing nutrition fundamentals, as well as learning how to really attune to our body's like innate biological hunger cues, really learning like appetite awareness and appetite regulation, and regulating our eating habits in a, let's say, a conscious and an intentional or a mindful way. So this is something that I practice myself and that I help my clients practice, and I try to encourage other people to practice. And when I talk about being, I guess, like mindless or unconscious with your eating, people probably just aren't really, paying attention to if they're truly hungry or not, or even being aware of why they might be eating. Like maybe you're just eating because you're bored versus actually hungry. And so with practicing mindful eating and then using this tool that I'm going to teach you about today, you can start to be more intentional with your eating habits. Honestly, at every single, let's say, feeding or eating opportunity, you have the choice to be mindful, intentional with your food choices. I use the term intuitive eating, which a lot of people think that intuitive eating is just eating whatever you want, whenever you want, or there might be other things that people think about with intuitive eating, but that's not really what the intention was when Dr. Evelyn Tribole and Evelyn Reich created intuitive eating. Intuitive eating was really trying to teach people to get back in tune with their body's true biological innate ability to regulate their appetite and be able to tune into like when they're hungry, when they're full, but then also use like their mind, and even you can use your emotions when it comes to eating, because like so the combination of, let's say, that intuitive eating is talking about with so first, like, you're being attuned to your biology, if you will, or your physiology of your body, and really assessing, like, is my body physically hungry right now? Is my body experiencing, like, am I lightheaded, or is my stomach feel empty, and is it growling? So those are signs of biological hunger. But then you can also use your mind when it comes to eating in your food choices. So like thinking about things like, what is something that's going to be in line with my goals, but also what's something that I enjoy eating, that's tasty and satisfying to me. Because if you're eating things that aren't satisfying or that you don't like, the meal's not going to be enjoyable. And so that's kind of where you're bringing your emotions in, because food tastes good, and food is meant to be enjoyed. We do get some pleasure out of a really good, well-made meal, and so it's totally okay to enjoy our food. And so thinking about what foods would be enjoyable and satisfying to us, that's kind of a little bit about intuitive eating. But it also practices things like, yes, like feeling your fullness. It also talks about making peace with food, and so getting rid of this mentality that like food is good or bad, so it works on your mindset towards food. It also talks about like honoring your hunger, which is like when you're hungry to eat, but then also to pay attention consciously, intentionally, to how full you are. So that's a little bit about mindful eating. It's combining those two, and then also with nutrition fundamentals. So some fundamental, let's say, nutrition habits and tools could be eating slowly, and other ones could be being aware of portion control. And it's also asking you to be, I guess, like aware of what's in food, learning in food. And those are things that are, I guess, foundational elements of nutrition or eating better that are going to help people. How often do you like intentionally, like mindfully choose the food that you're eating and actually think about like, okay, like what am I going to choose to eat? How is that going to make me feel? Is that in alignment with my goals? Is it also going to be satisfying to me? But then how often do you eat your meal slowly and actually enjoy it in, let's say, just like a peaceful or welcoming environment and atmosphere? How often do you yeah, those are two big things that people possibly don't do all the time, but they are like fundamentals, they are basics. And so the thing I want to talk to you about today with practicing mindful eating is using a hunger scale. And so this does require being able to tune in to your body's hunger cues. It does require you learning what it actually feels like when you're hungry, what it feels like when you're full, but it's something that can be learned, it's something that can be developed. And this was honestly kind of like something that I thought about this weekend. So for example, I drove a few hours to visit some friends because it was their birthday, and I had eaten lunch on the go driving down to see them. And when I got there, shortly after I got there, they were having lunch, and I could have ate lunch with them, but I honestly practiced like being mindful, intentional, or conscious with like how my body was really feeling, and I really wasn't hungry. And so, and even tuning into, let's say, this hunger scale, I was really able to be like, you know, yeah, I'm not hungry. I don't need to eat right now. If I were to eat right now, I probably wouldn't thoroughly enjoy it because I'm not hungry, and I probably wouldn't feel that good because I'm like honestly like not hungry, and I'm kind of in this like middle ground of like somewhat still full. So that would just make me feel even more full, and I don't want to feel that way. And so this hunger scale is, think of like, as, let's say a 0 to a 10, where like a 0 is like you are absolutely so hungry. Like it has been hours since you've ate, and you're probably even experiencing maybe some level of hangriness. You're lightheaded, and you just really know that like it's been a long time since you've ate and you really need to eat. And that's like, honestly, we never want to get to that place. Maybe sometimes we do, but we don't want to get there. Whereas 10 is feeling like really overly stuffed and full and so uncomfortable in our bodies. Like if you were to think about like going and moving or walking or doing anything physical, like with how full you feel, you literally wouldn't be able to do it. You probably just want to just like lay down and just be like, oh, I don't feel good. Where then you have some place in the middle where 5 is kind of like, maybe, yeah, it's that middle ground where it's like, oh, like I feel like okay. Maybe that 4, 5, 6 range is like, meh, I'm like, yeah, okay. Where maybe that 7 on the scale of like 0 to 10 is like, okay, yes, like I'm hungry. I should probably eat. And so being able to also discern and recognize what your hunger cues are. I start to get lightheaded, and in a way my head almost burns. I do also kind of feel like an emptiness, let's say in my belly area. And so it's going to be different for everyone. Some people might feel like they genuinely feel like they're getting like their blood sugar is dropping. But so in any situation, whether it's like breakfast, whether it's lunch, whether it's dinner, whether it's snacks, whether it's like just like your friends are grazing on chips and stuff, like you can really tune into your body's like hunger cues, hunger signals, and ask like, am I truly hungry right now? And even if I'm not truly hungry, do I want to make this intentional conscious choice of like engaging in eating these chips or these other snacks that are around me? Or like if I do eat these chips, like how am I going to feel? Am I just going to feel sluggish? So just really starting to be mindful, intentional, and conscious about your food choices and your eating habits. And it does take time, but it also requires slowing down. When I talked about, I've noticed people that are mindless or unconscious with their eating habits. People's eating habits are just so reactive, so quick. They're not thinking about what they're doing. It's just really unconscious. And so mindful eating does require us also to slow down, to really slow down and think about all of our eating habits and behaviors, and to think about our choices, and to even think about things like, and consider things like I mentioned, like how hungry really am I, or like how is this food that I possibly want to choose, how is it going to feel in my body? Is it going to make me feel sluggish, or is it going to make me feel energized and good? Or If I have this snack, like, yes, maybe I won't be super full, but maybe it'll tide me over. Or if I'm gonna like just participate in some like chips or snacks or whatever with some of my friends, like how is that going to make me feel in my body? Maybe I would just like rather skip on that to like wait for dinner where it's going to be a really satisfying and delicious meal that I'm really going to enjoy. But again, it does require us to actually slow down and practice, let's say, like mindfulness, intentionality, and be conscious with our choices. But this hunger scale is something that wherever you are, you can start to like tune into it. Another kind of daily action like somebody could do to practice tuning into, let's say, their appetite and their hunger and their fullness cues could be like every few hours, like practicing like an appetite check or a hunger check, and just kind of checking in like, oh, like how hungry am I? How long has it been since I ate? Because something I also want people to be aware of is not getting to the point of no return. That's what I call it. So, you know, that moment where it's been hours since you've ate, you probably skipped a meal, whether that was intentionally or unintentionally, and you get to a point in the day where you're just so hungry, you're so ravenous. And so you probably are gonna go get something that's super easy, something that's super convenient, but it's probably not going to be healthy. It's probably not going to make you feel that well. And then you also might like just eat super fast and overeat, and then you end up like just not feeling good. And so that's like getting to that point of no return. And so what I advise people to honestly do is to think about and plan ahead. It's like practical taste, if you will, where you will make choices ahead of time, plan ahead of time so that you don't get past this point of no return. So you're thinking ahead of time, like, okay, if I'm going to be out of the house for a few hours, is there like a snack I can bring with me to tide me over so that I won't get to this point in this place where I'm so hungry that like I end up making a choice that I don't necessarily want to make, but I got to that point where I was just so hungry. I got to that place where it's like a 0, a 1, or a 2 on this like hunger scale where it's really hard for me to practice being mindful, conscious, and intentional with my food. So you can also like set up your environment and systems to help you to get to not get to that point. So like having snacks handy that are going to help you feel good and help you be in alignment with your goals that are quick and easy and convenient. I always think about like fresh fruit or protein bars or pre-made protein drinks that are of good quality. But then also just thinking about some sort of kind of like meal prep or ahead of time, or just planning ahead of time so you have some food at home that is available that maybe doesn't take a ton of time to like prep or to cook, but you could quickly throw together, like having chopped up fresh salad ingredients and some carbohydrates that you could throw into a salad that's super quick and easy that doesn't take a ton of time. Or you could meal prep ahead of time, even just like vegetables or even just a protein, and have some quick and easy, maybe steamable carbs or veggies. And because you have that protein already, it's not a ton of time, and so you can still have something available ahead of time to help you to not get to this point of no return, and also to not get to that place on the hunger scale where it's like a 0 or a 1 or a 2, where it's hard to practice, let's say, mindfulness or intentionality or consciousness with our food choices. But that is just a little bit about what I like to call and practice mindful eating, that combination of nutrition fundamentals, but being really intentional and conscious with our food choices, and also practicing some principles of intuitive eating. And then just some tools to help you to practice more mindful eating. Like I mentioned, the hunger scale, and then even eating slowly is a really good one, and appetite check-ins or hunger check-ins. So I hope this was helpful. I hope this gives you some food for thought, and I hope that you will practice some using the hunger scale or even eating slowly and doing appetite check-ins and being mindful of not letting yourself get too hungry, but also not letting yourself get too full, and kind of be in that middle ground of eating when it's an appropriate level on the scale to eat. And in that way, you're just stewarding your body well, and you're just practicing, balanced and healthy and good eating and nutrition habits.